So I also have the pleasure today of introducing our speaker, who just happens to be my better half. And those of you at the fellowship and probably at ARA have seen David in many places. He worked at the Heritage Store, the original one, for many, many years, over 30 years, but he worked in the back in this little troll cave, we called it, because it had no windows. And he was like that little secret wizard back there, making everything work. He worked actually with the Casey products for a really long time, which are products that were channeled by Edgar Casey for people's health. But really where his heart is was moved to the spiritual aspect of that. And when he joined the Glad Helpers spiritual prayer group, and you know, I often hear people say, and people would say to David when they meet him, "So what do you do?" And David always said, "I'm a glad helper," instead of where he worked. And I thought that was really interesting because that's what he identified with, and not what he did, but who he was. And who he is has a lot to do with his prayers and just who he is. He's the master reframer of any situation, and he does it so quickly. If something happens that we might think is negative, or someone says something that's a little questionable as to their motives, he can turn that around in a matter of seconds, and he's been my best teacher in that because he is so good at it. He has a list of affirmations that he says every day that is so many pages long, but they're all in his head. And he has them memorized. And I don't know, one day I offered to actually type them up, and there were like 3 or 4 pages of them. And I said, I can't believe you have this all in your head. He also sees the beauty in the small things and the everyday things that people often overlook. We'll be driving, and it will be a gray, rainy day, and he'll look at the sky and say, "Look how beautiful the sky is." And it's like a gray sky, but he's like, "But look at all the layers, and it's so beautiful." Or we'll go for a walk, and he's pointing out all the little teeny tiny flowers that people would call weeds. But he does not call them weeds. He calls them miracles. My biggest earth angel is here to speak to you today and share and bring through all of his wisdom and all of his heart. So please welcome David Riblet.
Hey, good morning, all. First of all, I want to thank some people. Sarah, thank you for doing the prayer group on Thursdays on Zoom at 3 o'clock. Encourage anyone who is called to do that. It's an online version of what we do at Glad Helpers, or at least, you know, from the fellowship angle. I want to thank Erica for reading the readings on trust. Scott, I want to thank you for doing the camera, and also you and Marnette for singing later. That's going to be some treat. And sweetie, I want to thank you. I write her a note every morning, almost every morning. Occasionally she wakes up before me and I don't. But this morning's note, they always have a designation at the end of how I see her, how I feel for her. And this morning's was Minstrel of the Way. And that has a lot to do with what I'm speaking on this morning. She and I both ask, what do people most need to hear? You know, and that could go anywhere, and often it does. But what I'm going to speak on today, I not only asked what you all need to hear, I asked what you all need to hear. And so basically, I've had a lot of angelic input on this talk, because what the angels want from us is they want us to ask for help. They want to communicate with us, and they want to help us. But there's a secret, just like with prayer, which Sarah started with prayer and song this morning. Songs are prayers, prayers are prayers, affirmations are prayers. Basically, we have to ask. And there's a whole rich tapestry in this world that's just not what we look around and see every day when we look around and see people and we see what the state of the earth looks like. And don't look at that too long. You can do better than that. You know, it's important. We need to be grounded, but it's much more than that. And that's what is in my heart and what I'm going to speak about today. So, as many as you also often know, I've had a near-death experience. And so as I started to do this presentation, like, well, how do I connect everything together? I decided to be an experiencer. And so I'm going to take you through how angels have impacted my life, including three actual sightings, two of which were doubles. They were experiences, and they changed my life. And I think that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to ask, we're supposed to listen, we're supposed to shift into how we can most help people. And so there's a lot of input. In fact, it changed last night, this talk, and it changed this morning. The angels had more to say, and so did the elementals. And so this morning, I'll start with an experience I had in college. Now, I'm a guy, I'm in college. I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing. College ain't it. Some of the other things I'm doing, they probably weren't it either. But, one morning, I started to have this experience. And I had it for 3 days. And really, I saw how the whole universe worked. It's like, wow. And I didn't know what to do with it. I knew one thing. There wasn't a single friend I had at that time in my life that I could go ahead and have that relate to them and relate to me. And we all probably have faced that in different ways at different times. I'm talking as an experiencer, but my intention is for you to relate it to your own lives. Because it isn't my experiences that matter, it's your experiences, and looking at them and maybe looking from hindsight a little better look at them. So I have this great experience. I have no idea what to do with it. I retreated because I basically really didn't know what to do with it because I had no one I thought I could relate to. So, fortunately, sometimes the angels help, even when you don't ask. And you can look back and you can see that, because the angels had my best friend across the hall have a book, Edgar Casey's on Atlantis. I immediately reread it, tried to come here and had a broken rib and got redirected for a couple of years, but it brought me at the perfect timing. And as Charles said, I worked with the Casey products and really literally helped millions of people. The last year I was in that position, we shipped out 1 million bottles worth of product. And those are things that oftentimes, like castor oil and herbal tonics that go back to the Native Americans and other native tribes, those are the elementals. They're here to help us. We have to look at them to get help. We have to ask them for help. So I lived the first part of my life that way. I did have one interesting thing, which I could have said I had help from angels, but I didn't remember the angels well enough to say I did. So I'm coming outdoor at a plumbing factory. It's like the first job I have out of college. It's this block long area. It's 48 steps tall between the third floor, the second floor, the first floor, and the basement. I can't tell you how many times I went up and down those 48 steps. I was a little tired of going up and down those 48 steps. So I decided one day, with the heavy motors, that I was not walking all the way down the hall, not walking down those steps to the second floor, and not walking down to the very end, right by the fire escape. And I decided, in my great wisdom, I'll walk down the fire escape. And I started. And of course, I have a heavy motor in both hands, so all of us who've carried stuff know that's an interesting balancing act, particularly when you step down on the top step and you're watching it hit 2 floors below, and you're standing back up on the landing. Okay, how did that just happen? I had help. I didn't know to call it angels at the time, but having your weight where you can step and be a step below you and somehow be back up where you just started, thank you, angels. So all of us have a lot of help. I didn't particularly catch on real quick, maybe, when I was younger. That's probably not uncommon. And I ended up in a situation which I won't speak on at any length because I've spoken it here. It's my NDE. I was on the other side, and I couldn't get back. And I asked with all my heart to help people. And I had done this in college, too. I'd asked to help people. So here again, I'm in a position where I hadn't grown enough to shift to understand how I could help people without going through what I went through. But again, I had a lot of help. I will again say that I connected with the higher loving beings, and I ended up back on earth, and I'm truly grateful for that. All of this, though, is really going from subconscious to conscious. And if I were going to talk today and just share tales like that, and they were subconscious, it would not reflect what I think our lives go through. So I was at the Heritage for a while, and it was time for me to shift again, but I didn't know how. So I got on something called the Biomat, which is a Tesla device that has a Tesla coil in it that does infrared heat. And I laid on it for 2 hours, and I prayed. And you pray for 2 hours, you're going to have some stuff move. I don't care. As long as you're praying for your purpose like I was, stuff will shift. I had 3 things happen. One of them is going to be my first connection with angels that was conscious. First thing I saw, though, was I saw a little golden speck, and it retreated, and a little golden speck, and it retreated. Third time I saw a golden speck, it was Jesus. Went away again and came back a 4th time, it was Jesus again. Okay, I don't know what to make of that either, but hey, I asked, so I've gotten an answer. And I repeated this process. And the second time because I travel when I get on the Biomat, that just creates this field that I travel. And I saw a pyramid, and I smelled what the water smelled like around the pyramid. In the case of readings, there are 2 temples. One's a temple of beautiful, one's a temple of sacrifice. In the temple of sacrifice, people helped beings who needed help with disabilities. I'm just going to leave it at that so I don't get into the case of readings. And I think I later did that with the Glad Helpers. It was the answer to my prayer, where I was praying to help people. And I didn't know it yet, again, at that time. It's almost, this was the 3 unfoldings of what my near future was going to be. What I want you all to do, though, is connect this into your life streams and what you had take place for you. The third one, I saw a flock of angels, and they were just beating their wings. And nothing was said. It was either Raphael or Gabriel was the lead angel. But they were there. And I have done a lot of angel work more recently in the last 7 years. So all those things were, they were just like groundwork for what was going to happen. I guess for the angels you could say it other than groundwork. But anyway, so Spirit was afoot, and when Spirit's afoot, other things are going to happen. There it was with the Heritage, but I wanted the spiritual side of things. I gotten to that point where the physical 3D world was I needed something that more reflected, as Cheryl said, what my heart and soul were. And I took a plane at 6 in the morning. Well, I tried to, it didn't. There was a problem with the fuel gasket or something. Not a good thing to fly if your plane isn't going to work. Tried to fix it. An hour later, part they flew in wouldn't work. I proceeded to fly and fly and fly until the next morning, when 24 hours later, I walked in the convention center, because it's probably a 20,000 person convention center and booths, and I had heightened sensitivities of everything I was walking into. And I didn't know what to do with myself. It's another one of those things like, okay, a little overwhelmed here, what am I gonna do? I walked down one aisle, first aisle, we just started, very first day. There's a Native American man who does Reiki. And that Native American man takes one look at me, can tell I really could use some help because I just was having a really hard time. He walked me over and he did Reiki. Wow, that was great. I walked around, maybe down one aisle, and I headed right back to him. And I said, is there a Native American book that I can read that will be of help? So I asked for help. The things that change our lives, I think the most, that we're most conscious of, are when we ask for help. He gave me Cherokee, he told me to read a book by Garrett called Cherokee Full Circle. And that was a life changer for me. I had shifted, but I didn't know how yet. I also read some other books by the Garrett. One was Walking in the Wind and one was Meditation. I don't remember that exact title. But it was interesting because I was going back to my Native American lifestyle that I'd had in other lives. And Cheryl spoke last week of, we were on a trip one time in North Carolina, and our phone went off in the middle of the night, and it said, turn left. Okay. Actually, I said the next morning, we should honor that. So we did. We turned left. We ended up at the Cherokee Reservation. Cheryl and I have a lot of other Cherokee things, including a dream where we were brother and sister. I took some of that material from the books and I walked around in my backyard at the time, before Cheryl and I were together for about 9 months. It took that long to be born. But I walked around and I talked to the flowers and the bushes, and I brought the elementals into my life, not just the angels. So I ended up being sent to do prayer work. And I've done it for 17 years, and we pray for people who ask for help. So the connection is there. People ask for help, they get help. And that's, again, coming back to why I'm doing this today. I'm encouraging everyone here to ask for help, to get the help, to know what their path is, and to see how it's pertinent to this time in our lives. If that was just one experience with angels, one experience with angels, the rest of the stuff, oh, they're cool stories, but, we all have our cool stories. And they're part of what make up our lives. But I decided, not really, ended up in a really altered state one day. So Wayne Dwyer's children speak at ARE. I just started working as the membership manager, and I got up on the ladder to clean out the gutter for Hurricane Florence, and the next thing I knew, the ladder twisted. I was not on the ladder anymore. I called for help. Cheryl went and checked on her neighbor because she thought it was her neighbor. That was pretty funny. But I was in a lot of pain. And my friend Dave Bennett does white light treatments. And I called him and I said, I need help. I mean, I was trying to deal with the pain. I was trying to go forward. And so he came over. I was in such bad shape that I could barely get on and off our table we use for the biomat. And he did a white light treatment on me. And in that white light treatment, the angels came and worked on me. I wore this today in honor of him because he gave this to me later. And that was my second connection with angels. Cheryl can tell you I was giddy. Here's a guy who just fell off the ladder, should be not responding this way at all. And I was so giddy, she couldn't tell it was her. And she's all, sorry, you're all worried and everything else, and she should be. And yes, there were effects from it that took me a long time to heal. I used the Casey products. But I was in this presence that was just life-altering. And so anyway, there are also earth angels. Susan Thomas, I don't know where you were, but where you are. But Cheryl and I were praying and meditating and asking for guidance. Both of us dreamed of knit shirts. Susan talked to us and said she had some phrase called knit bone. Well, that's where the Casey products came in. It's elementals coming back in again. It's comfrey. The Native Americans called comfrey bone knit. And so we did packs with comfrey and apple cider vinegar, which Cheryl had from the Casey Riley Massage School, and castor oil. And I didn't move real well for a lot of weeks, but, you know, I was healing. About 2 weeks in, Dave came over again. Now, in this first experience, I'd seen angels, and Dave had seen angels. We didn't see the same thing. And he did his second reading, and it happened again. I saw the angels, and he saw different angels. The whole thing healed. Still have a fragment every now and then. But I was in the field with the angels again. Now, if anyone's ever been in a field with angels, and some of you may have, you have that field in your consciousness the rest of your life. You just do. So in August, Cheryl was wording our elementals. We were trying to bring them inside. We were trying to wash the bugs out of them so we could bring them inside and keep them alive. And she fell, hurt both feet and her knee. And again, we had help from Earth Angels. Bruce came over, got a couple things for us from the attic that we needed to get. And basically, a week and a half later, Cheryl was sitting in her chair, and the Glad Helpers were meeting. They do laying on of hands during their meeting. And I said and did laying on of hands. I arranged for somebody in the group to sit in for Cheryl doing laying on of hands. Somebody else did the laying on of hands. We service channels. We're not doing it. We're never doing it. We service channels. Cheryl's sitting there. And I experienced the angels again. This time, however, I experienced them in a purple crown. And I experienced them as beings of white light who were moving around. And, you know, she felt it, and she felt what the Glad Helpers were doing. And a week or two later, I was able to go in person, and at her request, because people always have to ask so that we can do our work. Her request, I sat in. One of the Glad Helpers sat in with me, and I experienced that same purple crown again with the white beings working on Cheryl. And the lady who did it for me saw a golden color. So, we're on Earth. Is it just human beings? No, I think not. It's the angels. We have their help all the time if we ask. We can have them be part of our consciousness to a greater or lesser degree if we ask and if we allow that to be our experience. It's our choice. It's our experience. My experience will be my experience, and your experiences will be whatever you have in your life, because we're all doing this path and we're all taking it from different angles. And when I wrote my note to Cheryl, I called her the minstrel of the way this morning. And that was just what came through me. I was honoring what comes through me. Well, the Lord of the way is Archangel Michael. And there's a whole host of angels that works with him, or a flock, or whatever you want. And part of my work for the last 3 or 4 years has been to work with the Ascended Masters and angels. I do it through a group. I do it through reading the Gnosis and the Light Book, which I shared when I spoke on Lady Magdalene. I do it through my loving, thankful, prayerful affirmations, because as we pray, it shifts worlds. And that world, as you continue to pray, has a potency that changes your world. So, okay, well, we're here on Earth. I've been here on Earth 65 years. How are people, how is it different for me now than then? Well, I can say one thing from looking at the material I'm looking at. There's a big shift. November 11th of last year. That shift was a 40-day time period which ended on the solstice. And the blocks that we'd had as humans on Earth, where the angels and the planets and the suns weren't connected, it shifted. It is now aligned for the very first time since the fall, which is part of why I talked about falls on this particular thing, because it is not the same as it was. And as we go through this year, we're in a heightened period of action, which I encourage you to be aligned and attuned for, because we can literally claim our world for what it was meant to be when we first got here. When Jesus first got here, he's an ascended master. Yes, he's Jesus. He's the Son of God. He's a lot more than that. He's also an ascended master, and he's many other things. And one of the ascended masters that came in with him was Saint Germain. So a lot of these higher beings are stepping in and out of Earth at different times in their life to help us grow to what we're supposed to come. So I was preparing for this talk about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, and I had written it. It's changed, like I said, a little bit to include a little more stuff. I walked out and I looked across at the window in the other room, and I saw a butterfly. This is January, folks. There's a butterfly flying around. So I walk in there, see it land on the green yellow bush we have. See it fly up and land. See it fly up and land. It does this 6 times. I decided I will call Cheryl so she can see the butterfly. It came in there, and it didn't show itself. But I think it was a message to me, and it was like encouragement from the elementals, encouragement from the angels. We are meant to work in harmony and peace with this world. We are meant for this world to be a blessing, and we have to be a blessing to this world. This is not a one-way street. We're not here just taking and taking, being unconscious of it all. We're here to work through our consciousness, to become conscious, to do the most we can do for people who are asking for help and to make a difference on this planet. And that's what the fellowship does. I'm honored to be able to be here today and share this talk. It's not the typical one we have maybe with all the different religions and all the different things, but there's so much more on this planet than we were taught when we were young. Because when we were young, it just wasn't shared. So I hope this makes a difference for you. Namaste. Oh. I'm sorry, I have one more thing. I was given this poem on November 22nd. It's called Great Trust. That's what I spoke on. It's really great trust with the angels. But here goes. Great trust. There comes a time in any human's world, a time of shift and change personified. Tectonic plates grinding relentlessly, mankind responding senselessly. We're here now, drifting on a protective layer like cotton, lighter than air, stronger than steel, above the vortex of the tumult on earth. Helmsman, steer our ship now. Long have we known to dip our oars in rhythm, sculling along, blades turned just right. A team of light rowing day and night. Stars to guide our heavenly strokes, a surfeit of buoyancy supporting our aims, a tailwind assisting us on our path. We are millions strong. Heeding the call, we are trained to meet. We are the bows of destiny. Bows of destiny. It's a ship. Swimming swans towing mankind in their wake, floating safely above the gathering storm, invoking the mantra, great trust, streaming this through our flottilla's crafts, lightening the hearts of all aboard, living earth sailing up and away, all of us restored. Now, namaste.